Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Kinda Opinionated Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Sharon, and I'm kind of opinionated. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Steven Cook. This is a pre-recorded podcast, and this is just the intro to it, if that makes sense. So I'm just trying to intro into it. Okay, without further ado, here we go. Here's the podcast with Dr. Steven Cook. My first question is, listening to your first podcast, I believe it was your first podcast, about school start times. My first question is, why don't you just flip the elementary school start times with the middle school or even high school start times? Because I understand why you can't have all the types of schools start at the same time, because then the issue with transportation through buses will come up. But if you flip the times, then wouldn't there be no issues?
So that's a really good question, Luke, and I think that's one of the things we've currently got a committee working on. If we flip them, and let's just use we'll just use the times, essentially the times that schools now start at. So elementary schools start at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and middle and high schools start at roughly 7:30. If we were to just flip them, the first problem that would potentially come up is that elementary students would now start at 7:30, and they'd be getting out of school at 2:30. Right now, there's about 5,200 elementary school students that would, at 2:30 in the day, each day, Monday through Friday, now need a place to go. Currently, they get off at 3:30, and many homes, their older siblings are at the house and could watch them. And so the very first part of that problem we looked into was the idea of, okay, if these kids get out at 2:30, are there daycare seats? Are there places for them to go where they can be safe and taken care of? And so we did some research on that. And currently if you take K through 5 in our school district, and then you also figure out that there's about 800 students per age level that are 0 to 4 that aren't in schools that could potentially be in daycare seats. That leads to about 8,000 students total competing for the total number of seats in licensed daycare seats in the community. And there are about 800 seats total, licensed daycare seats in the community. So that was a concern, first of all. Yeah. Second one was the idea of what impact would this have on extracurricular activities at the secondary level. Currently, practices start a little after school at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. If high school students and middle school students were going to be in school till 3:30, that would bump that an hour. And not that it can't be done, because there are districts that are doing it. But that's definitely a consideration. And I think the last one was, what would be the impact on students, and especially secondary students that have jobs that have to go to work after school? Would this potentially be a financial hardship on them? And so the committee that's working on this, those are very real questions they're trying to answer. And I think it's a possibility that they may decide, after all the research they've done, that it still might be the best move to go ahead and flip those schedules and have elementary students starting earlier in the day and having secondary students start later in the day. It's a very real possibility, for sure.
Do you think it would be beneficial for for middle school students to have, or even high school students to have a later start time?
Well, the research is clear that adolescent students would benefit from the additional sleep time. And I think we wouldn't argue ever against that. It would be helpful for us to be able to give our, essentially 13-year-olds and up that extra time to sleep, but at what trade-off? And I think that's the part that the committee's digging into. A 5-year-old student in the middle of winter waiting at a bus stop at 6:10, which is as early as some of our buses come by, is pretty early. And in the dead of winter in North Idaho, 6 a.m. still pretty dark.
Yeah.
So that's whether or not it's the right move, I think that's a decision. That's why we're letting the community lean in on this, because what might be fine for me may not be fine for every parent.
That makes sense. Okay, so on to my next question. So right now, you guys are running 3 middle schools and 2 main high schools. What happens when the elementary students from the 14 elementary schools go into middle school? if you guys plan to put all 840 fifth graders, given every elementary school has 60 fifth graders, plus the kids who move here, when do you guys consider a middle school full?
So our middle school, so right now, let me clarify a couple of things. Right now we have 3 middle schools and 11 elementary schools. And there's roughly about 900 students per grade level. And we are doing a lot of work right now recognizing that all 3 of our middle schools are completely packed. As a matter of fact, all 3 of them are over capacity. And so the question is, are we in a position where we're ready to go to the community and ask for the money it would take to build a 4th middle school? We don't have a lot of options. We've got portables at Woodland Middle School. We just did renovations at Lakes Middle School that are going to give us a little more capacity, not a lot more, but a little bit more. But we've got a problem we're going to have to resolve here soon because we are running out of space at the middle school level. We've added 1 elementary school. We know we need to add 1 more just for immediate needs. So I would anticipate in the very near future building both another elementary school and another middle school. That would then, in theory at least, you could have 4 elementary schools going into each of 4 middle schools that would go into 2 high schools, with building in essence a feeder model. But we're a little ways away from that. The price tag for that would probably be somewhere between $30 and $40 million to build 2 new schools like that. So.
Well, building on to that question, is there any talks about possibly renovating Hayden Meadows and making it a middle school or even a high school? If not, would that be a plausible idea?
So there's not currently any talks about building or changing the use of Hayden Meadows. Hayden Meadows is about a 30-year-old school. It's in great shape for 30 years. I think probably if we were going to do something, it's not going to be likely in that portion of the district because we're seeing a lot more growth on the west side of the district right now, and more specifically north and west. And so there's a lot of demand in the west of 95 and north of the interstate. So Hayden Meadows seems to be serving its purpose right now in a pretty good way. Right now, we're looking at the possibility of what do we do with Hayden Lakes, the old elementary school, after Nexa, which is in that. There's about 300 students in that school right now. They'll be moving to their new site this fall. What do we do with that space? And then also, what do we do with the field that's behind Hayden Meadows Elementary School? Maybe we need to build a school back there. That's a possibility. We haven't limited that option out of our realm of possibles. So.
Nice. Onto another topic that is, I think, pretty relevant. How's the zoning going?
What I assume you're asking me about is the reboundary work that we're doing across the community, right? So it's going. As you know, we're opening a new elementary school in this fall, so we've got to make sure that our boundaries can accommodate that new elementary school, which means we're going to have different attendance zones for each of our schools. Additionally, we're also going to have to write some policy that didn't exist to accommodate our 2 magnet schools. And so that work right now is going well. There's a lot still to do. The board hopefully will be taking some action on this. We'll make some recommendations here in about 2 months. March 18th is going to be when we'll have final recommendations to the board for all of that. However, the good news is, or I shouldn't say good news, there's a very real possibility that we could do some things over time. While there's the need at the elementary level, we've got to get that done. So we have different zones this fall. There may not be the same sense of urgency with either the middle schools or the high schools. So there might be some grandfathering kinds of things that take place. And by grandfathering, I mean maybe kids don't have to move yet at the secondary level. But there's definitely an absolute need for that to happen at the elementary level. It's going well. The committee is doing great work. There's almost 40 people on that, representatives from every school in the district, both school representatives and community representatives. And we've got some representatives from our advisory group and our long-range planning group on that. And they are doing some really difficult work. And it's kind of thankless because at the end of the day, There's going to be some people that will be impacted, and it's just tough situations. And so we're trying to do this without disturbing as many people as we can.
So, so next question. So, is there any confirmation about taking away the block schedule at Lake City or giving the block schedule to Coeur d'Alene?
You mean Coeur d'Alene High School,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So right now, here's why this question is so relevant. First of all, it's the fact that we have different graduation requirements depending on which high school you go to. At Coeur d'Alene High School and at Venture High School, you need 46 credits to graduate. And at Lake City High School, you need 58 credits to graduate. And quite frankly, I don't know that this to be the only one, but I haven't found another district that has this set of circumstances. We may be the only school district in the United States that has different graduation requirements depending on what high school you go to. I've never seen that situation in my 31 years in education. So that's an issue that we're trying to resolve. It was a finding. We did a curricular audit last year, and it was a finding. It was an equity issue. Contrasting the two things. Number one, Coeur d'Alene High School has much more instructional minutes in each class because they have a 6-period day. And Lake City High School students have much more choice and opportunity to take electives in their schedule because they're in the block. And so they take 8 periods every 2 days, which means 4 periods a day. So if you just do simple math on that, they're going to be reduced amount of time in each class at Lake City High School, but they're getting 8 options. And over a 4-year career, a student can have a lot more electives, a lot more choice, and a lot more opportunity to try different classes. So the question is one of them going away? I don't know. The district is doing a lot of work with that to try to figure out ultimately what we'd like to do, and I believe is the right thing to do, is to get a common set of graduation requirements for all of our high school students and then build the schedule that connects that requirements to the best strategy of delivery. So could that be a 6-period day? Maybe. Could that be an 8-period day? Maybe. Could it be something else? Absolutely. And so we're going to have a bunch of people talk about what does that model look like. So is the block schedule at Lake City dead? Well, not according to me, but it is a problem that we do need to solve one way or the other.
Well, so if why can't you guys just as you said, it was 53 credits?
It's 58 credits.
58 credits and then 47?
46.
46. Why can't you just lower the one at Lake City or make the one at Coeur d'Alene a little higher?
That's a great question. So right now, if we were to, let's settle on halfway.
Okay.
So if we were to say, so what is halfway? 52. So it would take a high schooler at Coeur d'Alene High School 4.5 years to graduate from high school. If we bumped 6 more credits, they'd have to take 3 more classes their extra year. And the classes, if you took a full schedule at Lake City, you'd be done in 3.5 years. So part of what we want to do is try to get them all on the same schedule. And I think that's the part that is unique about this. If you lower the credits, then you're actually giving kids different opportunities. And now can you imagine the frustration with the Coeur d'Alene High School students saying, wait a minute, I got to go to school 6 more months?
Yeah.
And Lake City High School students are saying, I get out 6 months earlier? So then we even have more discrepancy again, too.
Okay, I see. And one more question about zoning. So with the zoning, what's your prediction of when it will take place? And say you guys have an idea and everybody agrees with it. Will it be next year? Well, into the following year after this, or the following year?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. Here's what I predict, and this is a prediction. So if I'm completely wrong and people are listening 6 months after we tape this, then forgive me. But the board, I believe this will be what happens. The board will make a decision on March 18th, and I anticipate that they will be making a decision that will put the district in place for the elementary zones to take place in the fall of 20. this school year, 2020, 2021 school year, so that when students go to school in the fall, they will be going to their new elementary zone. I also predict that the board, I don't know that this will happen, but I predict that the board will make some decision at the secondary level that maybe the kids that are entering into their zone, so for example, like all new sixth graders or all new ninth graders, will go to their newly zoned school. But I also predict that they're going to say, let's not worry about the rest of the middle school kids or the high school kids. And that's the other likelihood is they say, let's just wait on everybody for a year while we're trying to solve this high school schedule problem. And let's do all of those things together in the fall of 21-22 school year. Either one of those things I think is very manageable. I don't anticipate that it's, the big things are people don't want, for example, if I'm a junior at Lake City High School and my zone is going to change for my senior year, I shouldn't have to go to Coeur d'Alene High School just for my senior year. And I think that's one of the things that the board is doing a lot of listening right now and hearing what all people might have some kind of belief that they have a need to be grandfathered. And there's a lot of different ways that could happen. And so we're taking that data right now, and we're going to have to make some recommendations here in the near future about what that looks like. But I predict, you heard it here first, folks, I predict that this fall, in the fall of 2021 school year, elementary students will be going to their new zoned areas.
Nice. Say you're going to Hayden Meadows, or say you're going to Hayden Meadows, and you're zoned for, and then the rezoning comes out and you're zoned for Atlas, but you've already been going to Hayden Meadows for like 3 years, and you love Hayden Meadows. Is there any way you can get out of the zoning, or do you have to go to the one you're zoned for? Because I know there was a lot of people saying that once the new zoning comes out, that you will not be able to get out of it.
Yeah, so I think that's a very real question, and I think right now that I can't answer that. I can tell you that we've looked at all the potential situations in which those are called grandfathering. Mm-hmm. Can I stay at my current school, for example? There's a plea, like the one we hear a lot about, my kid's going to be a fifth grader. Could they stay? They've been there for 4 or 5 years now, and they just want to finish their last year. Could they stay? And it's a very real request. Or we do students of staff, people that work for the school district, also get some prioritization in the school they attend. Are they going to get to stay? Or in 2016, we quit taking out-of-district students, but allowed them and their siblings to continue. Are they going to get to stay? Mm-hmm. All of these are very real questions, and one of the things is very simple. You can't have a class of fifth graders with 45 kids in it. So even if there are times when we're going to do this, it could be a situation where we can't do the same for all people.
Yeah. Well, those are all my questions.
Well, cool. Well, thanks.
Hey guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching. I know the ending was kind of abrupt, but that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of the Kinda Opinionated Podcast, please subscribe and comment below what you want me to talk about next. Okay.